So thanks once again for joining. Oh, Dr. George is here. Thank you very much for joining. I would like to introduce Dr. Gabriel. He's one of the COP leaders in 2026. So I give him a floor to introduce himself and introduce our speaker and take us through the agenda of today. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Gabriel.
Thank you so much, Dr. Crow. I'm Gabriel Soropa, who's based in Zimbabwe, working as a lecturer at University of Technology. As Dr. Crow said, I'm one of the leaders of ISRIC COP 2026, with the main objective of linking COP to soil science societies across Africa. It's my privilege to welcome you all to this webinar that we are going to share ideas and experiences on soils without borders, building a soil science community for Southern Africa. We are privileged to have two keynote speakers who are going to share their experiences and the way they see how the soils should be built across the Southern Africa region. And of course, we'll take a leaf from that and try to escalate that to the whole of Africa. Our two speakers today are going to be Prof. Johan. If my memory serves me right, is the former president of the Soil Society of South Africa, and Prof. George. They're going to speak one after the other, sharing the key aspects that we may all benefit from. So in short, on behalf of ISRIC COP, I want to extend my sincere gratitude to our speakers, technical team, and to each one of you for taking the time to be here. Let us engage, learn from one another, and commit to actions that will improve soil health across Southern Africa. I now say officially, I welcome you all, and I wish you a fruitful and engaging discussion. Then, without wasting much of the time, I may invite our first keynote speaker, who is Prof. Johan, to take us through his first presentation. Then we can reserve the questions to ask him after his first presentation, or if you are burning inside, you can type on the chat. Then we'll read and get a response from him. Thank you, Prof. Johan. Over to you. You may share the screen and take it over. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. Can you just confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, we can say it. Thank you, Prof. Johan.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. And yeah, thanks for attending. I think it's a very important and very timeless presentation. And when Gabriel asked me if we can give some background on the Soil Science Society of South Africa, we were already... George, I think you just must mute yourself. We were already engaged with some of the countries to establish a regional soil science society. So I think it was very timeless that we actually got this privilege to continue with this endeavor. Yeah, so this is towards a regional soil science society for Southern Africa. And yeah, I was explicitly asked to give some feedback on or the background on how the South African Soil Science Society operates. But I went a bit further and also just look at the value or the need for such a regional soil science society. So thank you. So in Southern Africa, just as a bit of a background, we share a lot more than just the political boundaries and borders. In fact, some of our borders that we do share are quite ridiculous, just straight lines in the sand with no real proper borders or reasons for having a border. What we also share is we share the same soil forming factors, resulting in the same soils. So yes, there are exceptions. You know, if you go to the Western Cape, you've got the Mediterranean, and up north you've got different climates. But in general, we've got very similar soil forming factors and very similar soils at the end. or when I say similar, at least vastly different than some parts of the rest of the world. What we also share is some of the challenges associated with soils and the pressures that we feel on our soils. Large parts of Southern Africa have got a semi-arid climate with very highly variable rainfall. Large parts of Southern Africa is very vulnerable to changes in the climate as well. We generally have soils that do not have a lot of carbon, that are often nutrient deficient, and problems like erosion and land degradation, salinity, pollution, all those things are all shared challenges that we face as soil scientists. And one thing that we also share is this enormous pressure that soil scientists or soils have to produce enough food for the growing population. And it's not only just food production, but it's also the pressure, on land use change, expansion of cities, more land that's being used for more intense agricultural production. So those are challenges that we all share, and that makes sense then to have a look at the regional soil science society instead of just focusing on the national societies. Excuse me. So I had a quick look at the existing soil science societies in Southern Africa. And again, it wasn't a detailed meta-analysis, but rather just a Google search or a ChatGPT search with a few emails sent around. And what I found is in South Africa, we've got an active soil science society. In Zimbabwe, there's an active society, but the online presence is very limited. So I couldn't really figure out exactly how active they are, except for a Facebook post or a Facebook page that was last updated 2 years ago. Zambia and Malawi had historically confirmed societies, but the activity of those societies is quite uncertain. And then other countries like Namibia, Lesotho, Botswana, Mozambique, Eswatini, and Angola, I couldn't find anything about a national soil science society. There are soil scientists and they are active through universities and through government departments, but there's no national soil science society in those countries. Just excuse me, I'm battling with a cold, so I'm got. Sorry about that. When it comes to the South African Soil Science Society, it's one of the oldest soil science societies in the world. It was already established in 1953, so we're almost celebrating 75 years of existence. Currently, we're about 300 members. It's got a very well-structured council. The council, change every second year. It's a new president coming in, vice president, past president, treasurer, all those, fairly active, meet 4 times a year. We've also got very regular congresses. First it was biannual, but now it's an annual congress. So every year we come together and share our knowledge. And then there are also a lot of working groups on different aspects of soil science that meet at an ad hoc basis, addressing certain problems. And I found it worthwhile just to share the aims of a South African Soil Science Society, which is basically to promote soil science, the discipline of soil science, among professionals, among academics, and really to improve the prestige of soil science in the country. It's also important to ensure the standard of soil science training across various institutions that train soil scientists. It provides a platform to share ideas and resources, to obtain and disseminate knowledge and information relevant to soil science, and to promote and encourage collaboration and contact between the South African Soil Science Society and other societies. And I do believe activity like today is part of the aim of the South African Soil Science Society, is to maybe expand its jurisdiction and its impact on a regional level. When I gave some thought on the need and the value of establishing a regional society, I came up with basically six points that I would like to discuss in some detail. Firstly, is to share regional knowledge and experience, and really to learn from each other's mistakes. Mistakes and the successes. Then, as addressing cross-border soil and water problems, is to develop regional appropriate best practices in terms of soil science. I think very important is to give soil science a stronger policy voice on a regional level. Help with getting multinational larger projects and providing professional home for soil scientists. And I'm just going to briefly delve into these 6 points of value for such a society. Just get this. So in terms of sharing regional knowledge and experience, I think it's very important that we do not reinvent the wheel. We've got some good scientists, soil scientists in the region, and we know that funding is limited. So it's really important to get as much as possible and learn from one another in terms of what works, what doesn't work. We know that we can't use blanket approaches. We know that very often the ideas that are generated in the global north don't apply here. In some cases, certain aspects of an idea like conservation agriculture, not all of those pillars works everywhere. So it's useful to learn lessons from other countries. We also know that, if we are candid, that some countries have got a bigger budget for research and for experimental science than other countries. So we must really leverage that to make the most and learn from one another. And also learn from mistakes. And I would like to use this as an example. But in 1948, in South Africa, we planted some of our montane grasslands with fast-growing trees like pines and eucalypts. And we very quickly learned that it's a big mistake. And those trees use so much water that availability of water resources became a problem. And eventually we removed those trees in those grasslands about 15 years later. But now with this whole carbon and planting 1 million trees and all those things, we found that some of the most pristine grasslands in Zimbabwe are now being planted with eucalyptus. And I mean, we know it's not going to work and it's not a good idea, but we're taking this gamble with environmental experiments that is not necessary and that is not sustainable. So we can learn and we should learn from each other's mistakes in the region. Then an important point is that a lot of our rivers and river systems are cross-boundary, trans-boundary. Our big rivers like the Zambezi and the Orange River and Limpopo River goes over several different countries. And where soil degradation is local, its costs are actually regional. So if you've got an upstream action that is detrimental to the health of the water or the soils, you often find that someone downstream is paying the cost. And 2 examples is one is pollution in the Olifants River irrigation scheme with phosphate. Yes, the rivers are polluted, but it ends up in a Massanger Dam in Mozambique, and they're getting the eutrophication and the negative effects of the pollution upstream. Excuse me again. Sorry about that again. And similarly in Lesotho, some of our highland soils, the wetlands there are degraded at alarming rates, and the result is sedimentation of dams downstream. It's basically the entire water balance is impacted by the degradation. So the impact is local, but the cost is at the regional scale. So we do share some responsibility to protect our soils in these cost boundary catchments. Then the third value of the Aboriginal societies is to develop regionally appropriate best practices. And I briefly mentioned if you've got ideas developed in the global north, they are often not applicable in Southern African conditions. And we do need something that works here, not only in terms of the soils, but also in terms of the culture. Some ideas are good, but they don't work in a certain setting in Southern Africa. Something like monitoring standards, relying on existing data, but it's often not available in Southern Africa, which is sort of assumed in best practices coming from the north. But an important point is to give soil a stronger policy voice. If we can, as a society or as a community, soil scientist community, provide a unified, scientifically credible voice that, SADC and the African Union, I think we will do a lot better and be heard a lot better than if we're just trying to do that individually or as a national societies. Also, to enable the successful proposals of multinational projects, such a society could facilitate the building of regional research consortia, identifying relevant research infrastructure, access to labs, but also access to databases and the coordination of multinational sampling and monitoring. I think there's also then scope for nice staff and student exchanges between the different countries, and a society like this could just facilitate such a activity. And then finally, Soil Science Society, if it works, it really becomes a home for soil scientists. In South Africa, you make friends with fellow soil scientists at congresses. You work close together, and it really becomes a place where you feel comfortable, where you can share ideas. It also can facilitate the creation of task teams. And it's really important for mentoring the new generation. Youngest scientists feel at home when they're among people with similar ideas and similar backgrounds. And I think such a society could especially be valuable for countries where the soil science communities are simply too small to sustain an active society alone. Finally, the challenges that I foresee. I think that at the national level, we've got different priorities. So sometimes the national and the regional needs do not always align. We all feel that we are overworked. So I'm not sure whom of us are really keen on taking on additional responsibilities. There will have to be some long-term funding mechanisms to ensure that this takes off. You probably need a secretary people that could actively be involved in the day-to-day tasks. There's a potential that there's an unequal distribution of resources and representation. So countries with stronger soil scientists or soil science societies will probably dominate the regional activities. But of course, this is just a flag. It's not necessarily have to happen. And then the cross-border coordination, it's always difficult when you work with people from in a different language, different culture, different country. But I would like to just go back to the original point: is we've got a lot in common, so it shouldn't be a big problem. And then I think the biggest challenge would be to maintain the engagement. Very often these ideas are very nice to start with, but to keep the momentum and to build the momentum is often a challenge. And that's what I've got to share. Gabriel, apologies for the cold and the coughing and everything in between, but hopefully it can stimulate some discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Johan, and gezondheid. We understand it's cold there, so yeah. I don't see any questions in the chat, but maybe we invite our guests to unmute themselves and just ask the questions if they wish. Otherwise, they can always use the chat box also. Over to you, Dr. Gabriel.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prof, for that insightful presentation. Get well soon, eh? We can feel you're not feeling well. You've got the cold, but stay warm, get well soon. Yeah, I think you touched on key aspects about similar soils with the similar soil challenges within the region, which is encouraging in terms of us trying to come together as a group so that we tackle these challenges. Whilst we wait for others to maybe pose questions, I think the touching part was that 6 of the countries in the Southern Africa, there's no soil science societies to in those countries, which is worrisome. I think coming up with a regional soil science community will make it good for us. Anyone to ask?
I have a question myself to Prof. Johan. It's very nice to see that the Soil Science Society in South Africa is very active and on a regular, they also organize regular activities. I have a question about how much the society is involved in implementation projects that is implemented on a continental or regional level, like from big funders like EU, like other World Bank, other funders. So, is the society taking part in the proposal writing, in the implementation? Are you also like a separate, like independent initiatives who can also be involved as a consortium member, or there are some limitation for that?
No, the Soil Science Society don't get involved in actual implementation projects or in any of those projects. It's more just facilitating. So we will, if such an activity comes to the front, we will, circulate it amongst our members, but we don't actually do the actual implementation thereof. Yeah.
And
But a good question. I wonder why not.
Yeah, I wonder why not, because you kind of like you have the best people in your society, like 300 member of all sort of specialists in soil science. So, and the implementation, like for example, the development organization comes to Africa to implement a big project with a big fund, and we always seek for national people. And so I think the bridge to the society can introduce people to national scientists, or we can also contribute with their expertise in better implementation, at least. And that takes me to another question that I hear that I don't know if you are aware also about all the regional hubs for fertilizer and soil health that is now organized around, or to be organized around Africa. The one example that is standing there with implementation is the soil fertilizer and soil health in West Africa, established their activity already since last year, and lots of implementation happening. And I heard that soon will be followed by East and South soil health fertilizer hub. So I don't know if you are aware of that, and what will be your contribution in, or are you planning for something?
Maybe, sorry, I'm trying to raise my hand, but it's not going through. I just want to make a comment on what Grow is talking about in terms of the soil health initiative. It has already started in Southern Africa, and it is being led by CADESA.
Yeah.
So I thought, Prof, maybe that's one of the opportunities, because I saw you talked only about the challenges. And I was fortunate enough to have participated in it. And I think it's an opportunity that we could have taken advantage of, because now it's being implemented by CADESA, which is just the regional Center for Coordination for Agricultural Research, but their expertise is not that one. So there should have been coordination, while the idea of having the regional soil science society is the one which should be implementing that one. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
No, very good point, Silabello. I think if it's already there, I mean, one should actually use that and utilize that and take it forward to being not only soil health, but to move it as a soil science society or soil science. Yeah.
Okay, then Prof. Ioane, maybe just a few nuggets to the participants of this webinar who want to know what should be done for a soil science society to withstand the pressures of the times. Because in some countries that we don't have standing societies, what should be done to have soil science societies in different countries of the region?
Yeah, I think it's individuals. It's really you have to team up with individuals that share the same dream, and they must be willing to go the extra mile to establish such a thing and to really be committed for a long period. But it's not just a short term start, 2-year thing, but they must be willing to be involved for the next 10 years to build momentum, because once you've got momentum, like the South African society, I assume that in 1953, there was only a few people getting together with a dream, but at some stage, that dream was converted in a sort of a society where people want to be part of. So there were conferences, and the conferences were attended. I assume at the beginning, not a lot of people attend, but it grew. And then there was a momentum building, and then people want to be involved in the society because there's something it's a esteemed place to be, and to be part of a society, later become to be a council member, later become important, for academic promotions, to say that you were a soil scientist, you were a part of a soil science society council, so that should count as a promotion. So you want to be involved, but I think in the beginning it's very difficult. That first, teething problems of really getting people to buy in for a long time. But that's going to be a few individuals pushing this forward. And I want to say this as well, because I think it's important, is that often we get projects that are funded for 3 or 4 years, and people jump in, but when the project ends, it's almost when the buy-in ends as well, and one must be careful not to establish a society that has got a larger dream than just one project, based on a project by project approach. You should actually get individuals together that have a similar dream, and then after that you start searching for a funding mechanism, for example, to get this started. It shouldn't be, we've got the funding, now we have to establish a site, otherwise it's just going to end at the end of a project funding.
Yeah,
Actually,
thank
it
you.
can be, sorry.
Over to you, Crow. It's okay.
I was just going to do a follow-up for what Professor Johan saying. I believe the society, when I meant to say if the society engaged in the project, I believe it will be a platform that can ensure the sustainability of the outcome and the impact of the project for long term after that, when the project ends. Because when the project ends and then people leave and everything done, that is left there in the hand of the national people, and then who can take care of that other than such an initiative in the country? So yeah, maybe that will be a good rule for the society, to always be engaged, to just ensure the sustainability. I see 2 hands. We have David Rosati, and we have Medalista, if I am pronouncing it correctly. David, we come to you, but first I saw the other colleague's hand. So Stay there.
Thank you so much.
Yes, please, Middle East.
Yes. Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Prof. Johan, for giving a nice presentation. So my name is Lindo. Yeah, you can call me Lindo from Innopeace Group. So Innopeace Group, it's a startup company that is, inspired by science, technology, and innovation. So I'm also representing an international consortium that is working on a project, image-based soil analysis and crop prediction using a smartphone. So my question, I was seeking clarity in terms of maybe Prof has any idea in terms of the latest updates with the Soils for Africa database or data sets. So if maybe Prof is any aware in terms of what are the mechanisms that are out there if, let's say, maybe that project is done for data access. So any idea on that one, Prof, with the soils regarding to Soils for Africa and Rain for Africa. I think I heard about those initiatives. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. I'm going to pass that on to other colleagues. I'm not involved in either of those projects, but I think George, you were somewhere involved in the Soils for Africa. But I'm sure on this platform there were other people who are more involved who can give you some clarity. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
Yeah, Johan, I'm not sure if you want me to answer, but I was actually not involved there. In South Africa, I think it was driven by the Stellenbosch group. Kathy mentioned at the previous meeting that data should be out soon. I'm not sure what soon meant, but that data will all be open source, so it will be freely available to all of us.
Yeah, I can answer the one for Soil for Africa. Of course, the data will be open source and it will be published this year, probably September or October, because the project was closed last year around that time. And there was some consortium agreement for giving 1 year extra for the quality control, quality assurance of the data, and finalizing all the last minute data coming in. And then it can be for sure open for all the users. So you will probably hear on all the news once it is open, and especially ISRIC will going to announce it on all the channels, media channels. So yeah, maybe I give the floor to David for the sake of time. Please, David.
Thanks. You all know I'm not South African, and I have little experience there, although I was happy to see about the Massanger Dam because my one PhD student from there, Armindo Kambule from Mozambique, we did the work in the Limpopo in the forest there and in the Massanger Dam, and indeed the cross-border issue. So it was nice for me to see the one thing I have there. Visited South Africa a couple of times. Now, what I wanted to first off, I wanted to say, Crow, the data for Soils for Africa is already open. What's there is there, and if you look at my page that I have of the third-party sources at ISRIC, I can put that in the chat. What's there is open. It's not complete yet, but what they have put there so far is open already. And Crow's right that there'll be a big announcement once it's all there. But I wanted to point out something else that could be a benefit of this society that Johan I don't think mentioned, and that was the professional certification. If it would be another step, but it would be allow you cross-border professionals. You're in Zimbabwe and you get a contract, maybe you want to work in Botswana, and you have a certification as a professional soil scientist. Now, this is what the Americans do, and of course, it's more complicated. This wouldn't be a one country legal framework, but it might be a way to say, well, some kind of exam or some kind of certification that you would then say it would help you as individuals be able to work in other countries with some acknowledgement of your status, and that might be another benefit, and that's what I wanted to contribute.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, thank you so much for the questions and the responses. I think because of time, we move to our next presenter, who's Prof. George who's a professor in the agricultural subject group at Northwest University. Is a seasoned expert in soil science. Over to you, Prof, to give your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, can you all see my screen there? I just want to make sure.
Yes,
Yes,
but
we can.
Okay,
it's
excellent.
not in the presentation mode though, Doctor.
Oh, is it not? Maybe if I...
You can just press that little button at the on the
Yeah,
bar.
on my screen it is in presentation mode, so I'm a
Oh,
bit worried.
maybe you have a double screen then. That's fine then.
Yeah.
Yeah, please go
Well,
ahead. Sorry.
for some reason, I can move my mouse. That, does the slides move? Has the slides moved on?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So I'm not sure exactly why. I think you're probably seeing my
The next
well,
one also, but if you go to display setting on the top, you know, when you share it now, you have a little icon on the top says display setting, and then you change your option there, then we don't see the next slide.
okay. So what can you see now? Can you see the slide at least? No. No.
Now we don't see anything. I think you stopped sharing.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's that? Is
Yes,
that
it is
okay?
perfect now. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, so in any case, I'm just going to talk about the soils and data sharing and basically trying to state a case which Johan actually did really well of also why we need to share data, not just learn from one another and learn from our mistakes, but and probably what one does well, but also data is quite crucial in that, and I'm hopefully going to make a plea for more data sharing. Now this 11. Okay, so I want to start with a statement, and that is that soil science is a serving discipline. And what I mean by that is we as soil scientists, we are never the final product. We always work on projects where, for instance, we want to produce more crops or we want to ensure that the infrastructure that is being built is solid. But it's never really about the soil. The soil is just the medium in which other things grow or are built or move. And I think that is a good thing, and we just need to embrace that. So just the example, if knowing what the soil's pH is not really useful, except if we add it, for instance, to calculate the lime requirements so that we can have improved crop performance, and then eventually um, our outcome would be food security. So we start with soil, but we end with something that's really valuable. And just knowing the soil pH is not really something that's really valuable apart from this production which we can have. That being said, I think if you ask most people like this little AI created comic is we all want a better life and we all want to do it better. And no matter where you go, you will find that. So, and one thing which I found quite helpful in what really makes a better life for all people is the sustainable development goals. And I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, because you're all soil scientists. And you've probably heard presentations like this before. But what you would see is like these 17 goals, and if we really can achieve as humankind can achieve this, we will really have a better life for all. And everybody would say, well, my life is better because we have achieved these goals. Now, Ratan Lal and a few others wrote a paper where they said how does soil influence these, and they came up with, well, basically of the 17, 13 are influenced by the soil. And there they are. I actually tend to disagree somewhat with them, and I put 16 of the 17 is influenced by the soil. That's why some of them are not completely shaded out. Even life below water. Johan spoke about the eutrophication of the Mazingeer Dam, and basically that's life below water, which is highly influenced by the soil, for instance. So the soil plays a major role, or can play a major role, in achieving these sustainable development goals. And that is why it's crucial for us as soil scientists to also play a role and get soils on the map, have people talk about it, and let us realize or play our part in achieving these sustainable development goals. So again, I'm preaching to the choir here, but we all know soils are different. They look different, and they look different because they've got different soil properties. And because they have different properties, they can perform functions differently. And that's what I said. It's a serving discipline because we want to get to those functions. What does the soil do, which nobody else really can, or no other medium really can do? And it's the easiest to understand is in crop production. I mean, it's not rocket science. 2,000 years ago, Jesus told a parable about the good soil yielding a big yield and the shallow soil yielding no yield. So if we need to have food security, we need to kind of manage our food resources or our soil resources well. Now, knowing that if we know soils are different, they've got different functions, and want to get some form of functionality from the soil, we need to be able to measure that because although this quote is often attributed to Peter Drucker, he actually did not say that, but we can only manage what we can measure. So if we want to measure stuff, or we want to manage, we need to measure. And measuring, we all know, is expensive, it's cumbersome, it hasn't really changed. Measuring soil and taking samples and so on hasn't really changed over the years. It's still quite an old methodology, and it takes time and it takes money. And that links me to soil data. So soil data, which is available, is already measurements that has been taken in the past. And that means we can, it's really valuable stuff for somebody to collect a soil sample. Let's say even just on a farm outside my office, it'll take me at least an hour getting there and back, even if it's just a topsoil sample. And that's an hour I could have spent on something else. But if that data is available, it's actually quite worthwhile in having that. So if we have soil data, that means we have soil measurements. That means we can improve our management, and that can basically increase our sustainability and help us achieve these sustainable development goals. So I just want to show one case study where improved data would really help. And I'm a soil mapper, so I went to maps, and I found this paper by Ndie Kebonye. It all they actually wanted to look at the soil vegetation interplay. But what they did is they created a soil map of Africa, and there's about 17,000 soil profiles in the WOSIS database that's being housed in ISRIC. And they use these 17 profile database and got a very excellent accuracy map, 72% accuracy with a couple statistic of 70. That's, I mean, it's amazing how well they did with the available data. Now it looks a lot, 17,000. If you look at the map, Southern Africa is pretty well represented there, but if you actually zoom in, it's not so much. I know of those 17,000, I think 1,800 roundabout comes from South Africa. Be relevant a bit later. So what I did, I asked him for the map, which he shared with me, and I took it on our university farm. And on the left is the soil map I did before we developed the farm. On the right is Ndie's map. And what you would find is, well, there's about 9 different soil forms. It's a South African classification on the left-hand side, which if you would put into WB would probably be 5 or 6 different soil forms, and vastly different. We're talking about nitisols and we're talking about leptosols. They're completely different. Whereas Ndie's map only had 2, so I'm not exactly sure what those are, but it's basically not a very, very useful map, even though it's highly accurate. And the reason is basically they didn't have any data from this specific piece of land. So even though it's a good map, they did very well with what they had. It's not really useful on a farm level and probably a bit wider as well. It was very good for what they wanted to do. So where I really got interested in this data, and or rather this lack of data, we've got a project which is a cross-boundary project where we want to map the hydrologic soils of South Africa and the border catchment. So it's quite large. You can see the map there. So it's the entire Lesotho, entire Eswatini, and then large chunks of Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique. And I'm glad Johan had the Masangier Dam as an example, because that's exactly why we need a project like this, so we can do the hydrological modeling better and make better catchment management decisions. It also fits into Rasacom and Limcom, which is the catchment management agencies. That many countries have people that sit on, because they have to serve people from more than one country. So that's our site. And we started and just doing a version 1 with the available data. So we use the South African ARC soil point database. So we had 12,000 points. So these are all soil classes and roughly about 12,000 soil points. And we can find our map. There it is. Very nice. It looks pretty. And if you look at the accuracy, it's not great, 49%. And the kappa statistic is, it's not a useful map. By all metric, it's starting to, you can show trends and so on, but I won't really use it. And if I use my Pienaarschkamp example, the university farm, well, I did worse than India. Even though I had 12,000 points just in South Africa, we only had 2,000. So even a large increase in data wasn't really useful in improving our map. So these two case data I just want to show is that we really need a lot more data, and the data is out there. If we can just start sharing the data, and those that hold the data can share it, so that it can become available. Now, these mapping products can become useful if they become more accurate, but there are other projects or other uses of soil data. I'm thinking of the crop modelers. They're always looking for soil data, carbon sequestration. They're always looking for that. We can basically sell carbon back and actually fund various regenerative projects through that. But data is key, and collecting the data is really still cumbersome and expensive. So if we have the data, if we can share it. So what we did, we started a data rescue of available soil point data, and basically we just started with relatively open access data, mostly academic works, and that would include reports for this different research reports, academic theses and dissertations. And then also a great source of our data is EIA reports. So when the EIA is done, those studies must be posted online for all to see. And we could get the data from that. So it's open access. And we ask the soil surveyors to donate their data to our database. And what we have found, we have about 1,000 data points collected. So these are all, I have to just say, soil classification data. We don't necessarily have lab data for most of them. We don't, although there will be. But we do have about 1,000, and they are quite clustered. Obviously, these EIAs and you have a research site if you do a thesis, so they are clustered. But it does improve our coverage quite a bit. So what we have done, Dr. Malebeleng she's doing a postdoc and basically just data collection and quality control of the data. She'll be, she's working on the project, basically the one obtaining the data and putting it into our database. And when I got invited for this talk, I was like, well, we can actually, the infrastructure we have, which is basically the position of Malebeleng, we can open it to kind of build a SADC or Southern African soil database, which we can increase later. So if you want to donate data, malebeleng@gmail.com. And then she would gladly receive your data and also your contact details so that we can share the database at a later stage. So just on that data sharing, and this is, I know it's a sticky wicket to bat on, to use a cricketer analogy. So eventually we want to make it open access so that it's available to all. We are just currently working, well, there's a few legal things that we have to work through. But what we decided that initially we'll share the data with those that contributed initially. So basically that's to encourage data sharing, but it also give contributors the first chance to make use of the data. I think it's often something as a somebody living in Africa and a South African, you see these beautiful maps being drawn in the Netherlands mostly, but it's my tax money that actually paid for the data. So we first want to give a time period where those that contributed to the data, they can make use of that and do their mapping and modeling, but that's a temporary arrangement. Eventually, it must be open access, and probably at a body like ISRIC or hopefully the Southern African Soil Science Society can become the custodian of such a database. Yeah, so that's basically what we have on data sharing. So I would like to hear your opinions and let's have some discussion on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. George, for an insightful discussion, especially when you touched on issues of soil data sharing. I think it's key for the Southern Africa and the whole of Africa at large. Members, any questions directed to Prof. George so that we can share ideas and experiences?
Maybe I have a really I wonder if David, do you have any comment to uh, Dr. George about the open access with ISRIC or
Yeah.
building any new database?
Well, any database, in this case, if I understood correctly, George, it was only the soil classes in the soil in the South African system, which could be linked back to representative profiles and properties, I guess. Is that right? Did I get that correct?
Yeah, so we because we're trying to create our hydrological soil map that's basically set with soil classes, but most of the reports would have representative samples that's been lab analyzed as well. So you would typically get like out of a report which might have 20 profiles, you'll have 3 or 4 that has been analyzed. So we would have that data as well. And then depending on what it was for, so the EIAs typically require obviously agricultural analyses, and if it's one type of study, you get these typical pH, phosphate levels, and so on. And if it's hydrological studies, you would get like KSAT and infiltration rates. But that would be on representative samples from this, whichever sample. So that would be around about 20 sample profiles per report. So to get to 1,000 molybdenum basically went through lots of reports to actually get that into the database.
Well, about the databases, you mentioned the Netherlands. Well, that's the way it is. We have government money from the Dutch government to maintain these databases, world databases. So any national database or even local database can be contributed to the WOSIS database. We have a whole pipeline that's been developed to get these into WOSIS, quality control them, harmonize them, and serve them. So although it's international, so I say it's in the Netherlands, but it's really the mandate is from the International Council of Scientific Unions. So it's really international, although the site is in the Netherlands. So that's one way to get things into an open database. As far as creating your own database, that's fine. I mean, anything. And we have also information in ISRIC about the FAIR principles and so forth that people can read. And then I do put these, and I was just looking, I don't have anything for South Africa, Republic of South Africa in the list of third-party databases. Only the SODER for Southern Africa is the only one I've got there. So whenever a database becomes open, and I find out about it either via LinkedIn or you can send it to me. This goes for everybody, anyone here. If you've got a database that you've got published and open, please send it to us, to me at ISRIC, or just put it on LinkedIn and I'll find it, or write a paper and I'll find it, and then it will end up in that list. Maybe that's all. What else, Crow? Do you want me to mention anything else here?
I think it's also now there are some journals give this opportunity for publish papers. Maybe you want to explain that better.
Very good point. Yeah, I'm one of the in the European Journal of Soil Science. I wrote along with my colleague Gerard Helvelink about a new type of article called a data article. You can just publish your data set. The ESSD, European Earth System Science Data, can do it, and there are a couple of other places that you can get a publication doing nothing but describing in your data set and how you made it and so forth. You don't then have to have a research project as such, and that's a very nice development, and then that's publishable. You can use free services such as Zenodo to put your data there. Again, ISRIC has a lot of information on how to do this. So don't be shy about that. The barriers are very low to that. The important thing, and I think what George mentioned, is getting the data in the first place, right? And document. I should mention the very important issue is documented. Good example and I think George mentioned this. When these points are decided on, are they a random sample of some type? Are they a grid sample? Are they purposive? You put them for the most representative sites. All these are fine. But when you know that, it helps the person using it to understand why those points were put where they are. And of course, you want to document all the methods used. Just a simple example, they're in the South African classification system. There have been several versions of this. Which one is it? What's the link to the relevant paper, to the relevant document that describes that, etc. So I think that's enough for me for now. But we have a lot of tech. I mean, ISRIC, we're very involved in this kind of stuff and standards and expertise. We've got a lot in our resource library. Crow has maintained this very nice web page with all the resources we've got classified that can be very helpful when we're setting things up. And of course, we're not the only ones who are willing to respond to queries, of course. George, anything? Yeah, I'd be curious to see when you get that data set online. Be glad to link to it.
Yeah, thanks, David. Yeah, it will probably be a while because we still need to finish this project. But that's why I said in the meantime, we're happy to share the data but firstly to the contributors, and then obviously if there's any worthwhile project in the region that could get help with the data, then we would gladly share it. We're just not going to post it online and then it's somewhere and
Yeah, okay, thank you. I can see Lindo, you're raising your hand. Do you have any contribution?
Yes, thank you, Gabriel. My question, I wanted just to get some wisdom to Prof. David in terms of, because I've been, in this, I would say, entrepreneurship space. I've been looking that sometimes we find that this kind of database, the ISRIC, the Soils for Africa, mostly people that they know about them, it's only people that are in the academia space. So how do we make sure that, let's say, maybe we popularize so that even people out there, let's say, I'm always fascinated about this conference. It's NAMPO. It's happening in South Africa in Free State. So in terms of how can we make sure that, say, maybe this kind of information, people, they know about them, especially like the farmers. They can be, the emerging commercial, small scale, and the commercial. So I just wanted to get the wisdom from Prof. David in terms of what are they doing, especially making sure that this information is not only exposed to the academics, but it's also out there to our community.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. First off, I think the idea of it going to the farmers with the kind of data we're producing here, as opposed to surveys on specific farms by consultants, I don't think it's really meant for that. It's meant for us to understand the soil geography, and it's meant for more general land use planning and maybe regional studies. Anytime you would want to get to the farmer level, I think we want to go through extensionists and specialists who can interpret the data. For example, George mentioned lime requirement, good example. I mean, that is locally specific on how a lime requirement is derived from different soil properties and soil tests. It's so I think the idea is the data should be available to the professionals. You mentioned academics, and that's true, but I think the next level are professionals, especially extensionists or crop consultants and those sorts of people. But Crow can say more about this, but we do try to publicize this, the ISRIC databases, when it's something new comes out, like, say, Soils for Africa, on all kinds of platforms, LinkedIn, but also, I guess, X or Facebook. I don't know. Crow can say more, but then who looks at these posts are really the questions. And then back to the topic of this seminar or this workshop, this is exactly where the Soil Science Society of Southern Africa would play a role. You'd have a website, you'd be monitoring this, and you would have your contacts where you would want to spread out information to the ones that you think should learn about it. So, for example, in your country, you know who the Crop Consultants Association is, or you know who the big agribusiness players are, et cetera, and you'd be the ones really to get that out there. Crow, maybe you can say more about what ISRIC does to try, at least to try to publicize things like Soils for Africa and get it to people that could use it.
Yeah, thank you, David. Of course, when the full data is available, and before with the dashboard, which is now also available. So we always published it on the project website, project LinkedIn page, ISRIC LinkedIn page, ISRIC website, community, the COP LinkedIn page, the COP website, the COP platform on WhatsApp. We also organized such an event to announce what we have, and also in any opportunity like this one, also we always share the link to data available, to events available, or open access data, of course. So I'm going also to put that in the chat here for you. I mean the dashboard for Soil for Africa, and I already put the link for a resource library there, so you can also check all the resources that we make available, open access. On our platform, you can use all the tools there for your needs. So that is also one of the objectives for the COP. And I think I have the dashboard now also in the chat. Yeah, so we announce on all the social media and communication platform we have. And also we encourage all the project leaders within the team to share with their own project consortium and use the data. For example, in West Africa, we also used the data from Soil for Africa to generate and build on more implementation plan, and collecting other data for soil fertility, for node trial, the nutrient omission trials in some countries. And we identify also some gaps there where we can other project can build on, like what we did in West Africa. I think it's a good idea also to think about the paper type, the data publication that offered now by some journals, like David mentioned. And then also, if you share with ISRIC through Voices, we do have agreement that the data owner will sign, and we always committed to that. And you can decide yourself how much you want the data to be open, and to what kind of users can be open. And also we always acknowledge the owner, the data owner. So it's just posted there, hosted, let's say, on that repository, but the owner always identified there. And maybe this also leads me to think about perhaps we can also offer a short training on how to host your data in Zenodo and other open access platform that we already use at ISRIC. Also, some of our project reports and data already posted there. We are happy to also do a short training on arranging metadata and also how you can create your account and post your data on Zenodo and other platforms. So thank you, David, for that. I will do that. Yes, please, David.
I just want to say that the original question, it was a very good question, though. I want to come back to that.
Yeah.
Which is not only how would we find out about other data, but how would the data then become useful? And something that's done in mature soil science societies is often having days with consultants or bringing them either into the society or having training days within a country to say, this is what soil data is, this is what we have, this is how you might use it, and to show what it can be used for and not used for. So again, thinking about an eventual Soil Science Society of Southern Africa, this could be again a kind of an activity to bring in uh, from the academic side and the research side, the commercial sector, and the database side, the commercial sector, in that would be the way to then come closer to the farmer. So again, thinking of activities that might come out of course, national societies could do this, but something that might come out of a cross-border society, it would be actually very exciting.
Thank you,
Okay,
David. Yeah, over to
thank
you,
you.
Dr. Gabriel.
Yeah, thank you so much for the insights from this fruitful discussion. But at the end of the day, people may start to ask. We've shared experiences on Soils Without Borders, building a soil science society community for Southern Africa. So what's next? What steps to be done? How should we move from here? I think those are the few questions that most of the audience may be asking, because at the end, we should have something that is tangible. We should have, for sure, a functional soil science community for South Africa with the time. I think having said that, I hand over to you, Doc Crow. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Gabriel. I think this 1 hour was very nice to come together to first explore the Soil Science Society of South Africa, how they organize their activity, how active they are, and also the opinion about data sharing. So I think this provide a nice engagement for sharing all the knowledge together and also opinions. It was also a nice opportunity to share some of the links in the chat so people might never saw this before. So I think this is very nice to know. And I think out of the discussion, few action points might now each of us can do, like Professor Johan and Professor George can think about how the society can also have play a role in initiatives, projects for the to ensure the sustainability and also to have a say on something like a data sharing, for example, when the consortium agreement done, if they are there, then they can maybe have some kind of agreement on that. And also for us to understand some needs, like, okay, we may need to do some short trainings, introduce people to some of these platforms, and some initiatives like how you can publish your data and make sure that you keep your ownership, and how that can also contribute in overall benefit for everybody. So I think this was a very nice step, in my opinion. And of course, we will, as ISRIC, remain committed to always contribute, to always support our partner in Africa to provide a platform and information, open access data, also support with any needs that can help enhancing their knowledge, their expertise, and also provide this platform for connecting to other experts and initiatives on global level. So I hope this was beneficial for all our participants today. And thank you once again, Professor Johan and Professor George from Soil Science Society, South Africa, for collaborating with us and introducing us to your activity and to the society. And thanks to you, Dr. Gabriel, for coordinating the meeting. Thanks to all our participants today for taking time and attending this webinar. And I would like to also announce that we are also working on organizing another webinar with Soil Science Society for Nigeria. We expect that to happen probably late September or beginning October. And then we also plan to talk together with the African Soil Science Society and perhaps try to do some activities for the next year conference that's going to happen in Zimbabwe, as I heard. So yeah, you will hear about the next webinars, and we really would like to see you there also. So thank you once again, and wish you a nice afternoon and evening where you are. Thank you.
Thank you so much.